Number 9. Shizuka Matsuki. No one saw what happened to 47-year-old Shizuka Matsuki when she disappeared while walking her dogs near her Davie, Florida home in 2018. But it was clear, based on one of the dog's injuries and their refusal to leave the pond where their owner vanished, that she was most likely attacked by an alligator. A witness who recalled seeing Matsuki just a little while earlier called the police after finding the dogs alone and seeing that the woman's car was parked nearby. After a day-long search failed to turn up any sign of her, law enforcement hired a professional trapper that captured and killed a 12.5-foot alligator. Inside its stomach, investigators found Matsuki's arm, and the woman's body was located shortly thereafter. The horrifying tragedy came after Matsuki's Homeowners Association sent out a warning to residents about recent sightings of a smaller alligator in a different body of water in the neighborhood. While it's unclear whether she got the memo, it's possible that she'd seen it and decided to take her dogs to a park a little further away where the attack occurred, thinking it was a safer alternative to staying close to home. Local resident Trina Gonzalez told the South Florida Sun-Sentinel that a large gator was known to frequent the park and that visitors treated it like a mascot of sorts. She said the creature appeared in a heartbeat after her son threw some bread in the water to feed the fish, and that she never returned to the park after that. While it's unclear whether this was the same alligator that killed Matsuki, rumors claim that the park-goers sabotaged traps that had been set several times over the previous 2 years in an attempt to catch the frequently sighted reptile. Oddly enough, the violent animal hadn't been seen in about a month leading up to Matsuki's death. In 2018, her daughter sued the town for failing to act on reports of gator activity at the park. Number 8. Lindsay Bull. A children's birthday party in Utah in 2021 went terribly wrong when an 8-foot alligator named Darth Gator bit down on the hand of 31-year-old reptile trainer Lindsay Bull. When the gator eased up his grip a little, she felt relieved, thinking that he was done being aggressive. However, the attack was far from over and he bit her again. The unexpected assault happened during a routine demonstration involving maneuvers Lindsay had used on Darth Gator hundreds of times before. She'd been standing outside the alligator's pool when the animal went after her. Given her experience working with the reptiles, she knew that Darth Gator's next step would be to pull her into a death roll, which is how alligators typically kill their prey. She later told the Washington Post that she was afraid Darth Gator would rip off her arm if she remained outside his pool, so she calmly entered the water and rolled with him to minimize the damage to her injuries. A parent who was attending the party tried to pull Lindsay out of the water but was unsuccessful. She instructed the man on how to immobilize Darth Gator, and he finally let go of her hand over a minute later. Lindsay received 38 stitches and was hospitalized for 3 days, but luckily, she was expected to make a full recovery. She told the Post that she didn't blame Darth Gator, who was hungry and waiting to be fed. If anything, she blamed herself for not being on top of her game that day and for accidentally brushing her arm against the alligator, which she believes triggered the attack. Within days of being released from the hospital, she was back at work, where she was paired with a much smaller alligator for the time being. But Lindsay said she hoped to eventually start working with Darth Gator again. The business's owner, Shane Richins, took all the proper steps to notify state authorities about the incident and was put under review. At the time, he was worried about losing his permit to keep alligators, but the business still appears to be open. Number 7. KALEB LANGDALE. As the temperature in Moore Haven, Florida climbed into the triple digits during a particularly brutal heat wave in 2010, KALEB LANGDALE and his friends cooled off in the Caloosahatchee River. In a rural town with no public pool and very little in the way of activities, it was something the teens did often, according to Caleb's aunt, LaDawn Hayes, who later told ABC News that one of the kids suddenly yelled about a gator in the water. By the time Kaleb spotted the reptile, it was swimming straight toward him from just a few feet away. Suddenly, all anyone could see from the riverbank was a bunch of splashing. Hayes said that Kaleb initially did a good job gaining control over the gator by grabbing it beneath the jaw, but that he was caught off guard when the reptile whipped its tail around and hit him in the back. He let go of the alligator's jaw, and the next thing he knew, it was biting down on his arm with full force. Caleb later said that he knew he had two choices, to either die fighting the gator or to let it have his arm. He said he could feel his bones breaking as he used his feet to push as hard as possible against the creature, eventually causing the lower part of his appendage to break off. The young man stayed impressively calm as he exited the water and instructed them to call for help because he'd lost his arm. By the time Caleb's mom arrived at the scene, he was laughing and joking with paramedics. As he was taken to the hospital, wildlife officers tracked down the 10-foot gator and euthanized it. They found Caleb's arm in its stomach and took the limb to the hospital in case there was a chance the doctors could reattach it. Unfortunately, too much time had passed by. Before undergoing surgery at the hospital's trauma unit, Caleb asked Hayes to snap a photo of him and to share it with his friends to let them know he was okay. His aunt told ABC News that he was continuing to heal and credited her nephew's sense of humor and mellow personality for his ability to get through the ordeal with such a positive mindset. Number 6. Matthew Riggins. 22-year-old Matthew Riggins let his girlfriend know that he was on his way to burglarize houses in Brevard County, Florida one day in 2015. Residents at the Barefoot Bay community called 911 after spotting the young man and an accomplice dressed in all black lurking suspiciously behind houses. The suspects ran from deputies, but Riggins never came out of hiding and he was reported missing later that day. While searching the area for him that night, deputies overheard someone yelling but couldn't figure out where the noise was coming from. His partial remains were found in a nearby lake 10 days later, bearing signs of an alligator attack. While recovering the body, divers encountered an aggressive 11-foot alligator and trappers euthanized the creature in response. Its stomach contained human remains that were consistent with injuries on Riggins' body, which was covered in bite marks. A medical examiner ruled that he died from drowning. Investigators speculated that Riggins had jumped into the lake to hide from law enforcement, only to meet a much more horrific fate. Number 5. Juan Carlos Laverde. In a horrifying encounter that was captured on camera, 34-year-old Juan Carlos Laverde's life was forever changed when a 12-foot alligator clamped its jaws down on his head and chest one day in 2022. The horrifying attack happened while the military veteran was swimming in Florida's Lake Thanatasasa in preparation for an upcoming event. Laverde miraculously managed to swim to shore after prying the reptile's mouth open. He dialed 911 and a bystander drove him to the hospital where he underwent an emergency 6-hour operation to repair the damage that was done to his skull and face. Doctors removed the entire right side of his skull and wired his jaw shut. In an interview with ABC News, Laverde said that he instinctively fought back the moment he felt scales and teeth. He recalled how the seemingly confused creature simply let go as he tried to open its mouth. After he was freed, he said he swam as hard as he possibly could to reach safety so he could get to the medical attention he so urgently needed. Despite the extent of his injuries and the long road to recovery he faces, Laverde was thankful to be alive. Number 4. Robert Bassett. During a morning bike ride at a park in Palm City, Florida in 2021, 74-year-old Robert Bassett's bicycle popped a tire and sent him flying toward a stream. In what can only be described as truly terrible luck, he slid down an embankment and landed right next to an 8.5-foot-long alligator. As a result, the alarmed reptile bit down on Bassett's thigh and torso. He managed to free himself from the gator's grasp, but couldn't get out of the water. Nearby parkgoers overheard him yelling and pulled him to safety. Charlie Shannon, who helped rescue Bassett, told WPTV that the man's leg had a lot of injuries. He used his dog leash as a tourniquet while waiting for emergency responders to arrive. Bassett was airlifted to a hospital where he immediately underwent emergency surgery. Trauma surgeon Dr. Jason Moore told TC Palm that Bassett's wounds were extensive and that he was grateful to be alive. The doctor recalled the senior citizen telling him that the alligator pulled him under the water several times while twisting him around, a maneuver that's often referred to as a death roll. Professional trapper John Davidson, who removed the gator from the park, said that she may have been protecting a nest when the attack occurred, and that his team would try to rescue her babies. The park's bike trail remained closed for more than a week following the attack, while staff looked into the matter. Number 3. Frederick Iman. A 68-year-old homeless Florida man named Frederick Hyman was taking his daily bath in a retention pond in Port Charlotte when a 9-foot alligator attacked him and refused to let go. Hyman tried to punch the reptile, who bit his foot, leg, and groin repeatedly before he managed to escape. An employee at a nearby business called 911 and Hyman was airlifted to an emergency room. He lost a finger, 2 toes, and a testicle and was still in the hospital a few days later when he told local station WZVN that he initially didn't feel any pain from his injuries, even though he hadn't received any painkillers yet. When the reality of the situation started to sink in, Hyman said he felt upset because he already spent all of his time alone and he didn't think he deserved what happened to him. By then, he'd been homeless for 20 years and had been bathing in local ponds for around a decade. Despite the traumatic ordeal, he said he planned to continue. The gator that attacked Hyman was euthanized, which some community members disagreed with. Speaking with WWSB-TV, local resident Lisa Poston said that people who live in Florida should know better than to enter alligator-infested waters. Number 2. Rachel Lilienthal. 37-year-old Rachel Lilienthal was swimming in the Waukeva River in central Florida one day in 2015 when an alligator bit down on her arm. She later told ABC News that she was in shoulder-deep water a short distance upstream from a crowded beach when the attack occurred. As soon as she realized what was happening, she started praying. Lilienthal said that she realized she wasn't going to escape without help when the gator began rolling her around in the water and she felt her arm break. Nearby couples rushed over in their canoes and kayaks and tried whatever they could think of to help Lilienthal. One couple, Krista Carlson and Casey Spencer, beat the alligator over the head with an oar while it tossed its victim around in the water. At one point, Lilienthal tried reaching for their kayak only to realize she couldn't reach it because her arm had been completely torn off of her body. The alligator eventually let go and the couple kayaked Lilienthal to a nearby marina where she received first aid and was picked up by an ambulance. Thanks to the quick-thinking civilians who came to her rescue, she survived the attack. Lilienthal credited Carlson and Spencer with saving her life and described them as heroes who put their own safety on the line to help her. Wildlife officers captured and killed a 300 to 350-pound alligator later that day. And at number 1, Jeffrey HEIM. Something suddenly struck Jeffrey Heim's head while he dove for shark teeth along the Myakka River in Venice, Florida one day in 2021. He later told ABC Action News that he initially thought he'd been hit by a propeller and that it felt like a boat had struck him at 50 miles per hour. But in reality, it was an alligator, and Heim knew he was extremely lucky to be alive when he managed to escape and get medical help. He was treated for a skull fracture and a hand injury and received 34 staples to his head as a result. The experienced diver admitted that he should have known to be more careful, especially because it was breeding season when alligators are noticeably more active and aggressive than usual. Heim acknowledged that he was lucky things didn't turn out worse and that the alligator could have easily killed him. But he vowed not to let the incident stop him from continuing to dive for shark teeth and that he hoped to turn his hobby into a full-time profession someday. Would you rather have the backyard of your Florida vacation rental invaded by a massive alligator who refuses to go away the entire trip, or spend your getaway staying next to a beach where people are being bitten by sharks in record numbers? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.